You've been waiting, praying, asking God to move, to open doors, to elevate you. And the truth is, you thought you knew how it would happen. You thought the promotion would come from your manager. You thought the healing would come from a specialist. You thought the opportunity would show up through someone you already trust. But that's where God surprises you. Because God doesn't need your familiarity to fulfill his promises. Sometimes the very thing you've been asking for walks into your life looking nothing like you imagined. It shows up wearing the face of a stranger. And if you're not careful, you'll miss the miracle because you were expecting a friend. But what if the next level of your life is attached to someone you've never met? You've got to understand, God is strategic. When he gets ready to elevate you, he doesn't ask permission from your past. He doesn't consult your history. He doesn't send comfort. He sends calling. And many times that calling walks in as a complete stranger. You didn't grow up with them. You didn't plan for them. You didn't even see them coming. But heaven had them scheduled for your next chapter before you ever knew you'd need them. And I know it's uncomfortable because we like predictable. We like the familiar. But God isn't limited to your circle. He's not confined to your connections. He'll use someone who doesn't even believe in you to bless you. Someone who doesn't look like they're qualified to speak into your life. Someone who doesn't know your story but carries your next step in their hand. And the truth is, sometimes God hides his greatest gifts in people you'd least expect. That's why it takes faith. Because faith doesn't just believe in what you see, it trusts what you can't recognize yet. And some of you have been praying for elevation, but pushing away the answer because it's unfamiliar. You've been saying, God, send help, and he's been sending it. You're just looking the other way because it didn't come through someone with a resume that matched your preferences. But elevation doesn't ask for your preferences. It requires your surrender. Think about it. God sent Joseph into Egypt not as a ruler, but as a stranger. But the same man who walked in as a prisoner walked out as a prince. Why? Because elevation doesn't need familiarity, it needs obedience. Joseph didn't need to be known to be called. He didn't need a crowd to be chosen. He just needed to walk into the room and let God handle the rest. Some of you are so focused on who should have helped you, who didn't support you, who forgot you, that you're blind to the blessing God is sending now. And it might come through a new voice, a new relationship, a new conversation, but it's coming. The stranger God sends might not speak your language, but they'll unlock your purpose. They might not understand your past, but they'll release your future. And when they show up, don't let suspicion shut the door on your miracle. God's ways are not your ways. His timing is not your timing. And his people, sometimes they're unrecognizable until they show up with what you've been missing. So don't wait until it looks like what you pictured. If it's from God, it will feel like purpose. It will speak to something deep inside you. It won't flatter your ego, but it will feed your destiny. You've been waiting for someone to see your value. What if the stranger God sends doesn't just see it, but activates it? Your elevation is not on pause, it's en route. And when it arrives, it won't knock like someone you already know. It will interrupt your pattern. It will test your discernment, but it will change your life. So here's your word. Be ready to recognize the unfamiliar as the unstoppable. Be willing to welcome the unknown with faith. Because your elevation isn't late, it's simply wrapped in a form you weren't expecting. And the moment you stop looking for what's familiar, you'll start receiving what's divine. You keep wondering, when is gonna happen? When is the breakthrough coming? When will the weight lift? When will the promise finally look like it's on the way instead of falling apart in front of you? You've been circling the same wall for so long, you started to think maybe it's just part of the scenery now. Maybe this is it. Maybe the miracle got lost in the mail. But what if I told you the delay wasn't denial, it was divine? See, God's not late. He's not stalling. He's not scrambling to fit you in between two more important miracles. What you call a delay, he calls preparation. What you see as a detour, he sees as design. And the reason it hasn't happened yet isn't because he forgot you. It's because he's aligning something greater than what you prayed for. He's not just answering your prayer, he's rewriting your capacity to carry it. You've got to stop trying to force God into your calendar. He's not bound by time. He created time, and he stands outside of it. So while you're stressing over a ticking clock, God is orchestrating the kind of outcome that won't just bless you, it'll bless generations through you. But you've got to trust the process, even when you don't see the progress. You thought it would happen by now. You thought that job would have opened, that door would have swung wide, that person would have stayed. And when it didn't, you started assuming maybe you heard wrong. Maybe it wasn't your season. But what if it is your season? It's just not your schedule. There's a difference between your timing and divine timing. You schedule based on comfort, God schedules based on calling. You want it when you're ready, God releases it when it will shape you. He's not interested in building your image, he's committed to building your character. And sometimes the wait is the work. Sometimes the thing you're asking for would wreck you if he gave it too soon. You're praying for elevation, but elevation without foundation leads to collapse. So God holds it back, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Because when it comes, it's gonna come fast. And when it shows up, it's gonna stretch you. So he's using the time you think you're wasting to build the muscle you'll need when the door opens. Don't confuse silence with absence. Heaven's not inactive just because he's invisible in this moment. He's doing more behind the scenes than you could ask or imagine. You think you're standing still, but spiritually, he's moving you into alignment. And when the timing is right, the shift won't be subtle, it'll be sudden. You won't have to kick the door open. You won't have to chase it down. You won't have to compromise who you are to fit into a room you weren't made for. When it's God's time, the door will open, the favor will follow, and the stranger he sends will speak the language of your next level. But here's the test. Will you trust him in the not yet? Will you worship while you wait? Will you stay faithful in the silent season, believing that God is still working even when nothing around you is moving? Because how you wait says a lot about who you believe is in control. And when it finally happens, when the moment comes and everything shifts, you won't look back and say, why did it take so long? You'll say, now I see why it couldn't happen a minute earlier. You'll realize that if it had come in your timing, it would have cost you more than you were prepared to lose. But in his timing, it arrives exactly when your heart is ready to hold it and your hands are ready to build with it. So breathe. He's not done. He's not late. He's just moving on a level you haven't seen yet. And when the time comes, and trust me, it will come, it won't just feel like an answer, it'll feel like redemption. It's easy to judge the package and miss the promise. To look at someone and say, they don't look like elevation, and walk right past the breakthrough you've been praying for. We like to think we're good at discernment. But what we're really good at is labeling things based on appearances. And if we're not careful, we'll reject the very thing God sent to raise us up because it didn't look like we thought it would. The thing that we think that the world wants, we end up selling to the world that we don't want. We like to think, see, some of the greatest gifts from God come wrapped in robes that don't fit your expectations. A stranger shows up in your life and you're quick to write them off because they don't fit your mold, your circle, your idea of safe. But what if that person isn't here to take from you? They're here to deliver something to you. What if they're carrying a word, a connection, a shift that can't come through anyone else? The truth is, you don't need eyes that scan, you need eyes that see. You need the kind of vision that cuts through presentation and sees purpose. The kind of sight that looks beyond the surface and sees the assignment. Because sometimes the one who looks least like destiny is the one who's been marked for it. Think about the way Jesus showed up. Born in a manger, raised in a carpenter's home, walking dusty roads with sinners, tax collectors, and fishermen. If you were waiting for the Messiah to come in golden armor, you'd have missed him. And people did. They missed their miracle because it wasn't wearing the right mask. Don't let that be your story. You've been asking God for a move. You've been asking for help. You've been crying out for clarity, and the answer might already be in your life. You're just looking with the wrong filter. You want familiarity. You want to feel comfortable. But God often hides what you need in places that require faith to uncover. That's why discernment is so critical. Discernment is what gives you the ability to recognize the divine even when it looks like a stranger. It's not about sensing someone's personality. It's about sensing their purpose. It's about knowing when something is bigger than it seems. And sometimes the person who irritates you at first carries the insight you've been missing. Sometimes the conversation you didn't want to have unlocks the door you couldn't open. But if you're so stuck on appearances, if you're so obsessed with the outer mask, you'll never make it to the deeper meaning. God doesn't elevate based on polish. He elevates based on preparation. And he'll send people into your life who don't look elevated, but are. Who don't sound impressive, but are carrying the answer to a prayer you forgot you even prayed. You've got to train your eyes to see what your flesh wants to ignore. You've got to be willing to say, God, help me see what you see. Help me not just recognize opportunity, but honor it, even when it looks like a stranger. Because what you dishonor, you disconnect from. What you reject prematurely, you lose the ability to receive from. And some of us are walking around with closed hearts, blind eyes, and missed moments because we judge the mask, not the mission. So we're watching the mask close, not the mission. But the shift starts when you stop waiting for the perfect person and start asking God for eyes to see his purpose in unexpected people. The next level won't always come through the loudest voice. It might come through a whisper, through someone unnoticed, someone unlikely, someone who wasn't sent to impress you, they were sent to elevate you. And when you learn to look deeper, when you stop filtering people by their resume and start looking at the calling on their life, you'll realize God had been sending answers all along. You just needed the eyes to recognize them. So the question is, will you see them? Will you open your spirit enough to catch the glimpse of God in someone you didn't plan for? Will you pause long enough to recognize that the unfamiliar doesn't mean unqualified? Because if you can see past the mask, you'll step into the moment. And when you step into the moment, elevation isn't just possible, it's inevitable. It's one thing to pray for elevation, it's another to receive it when it knocks looking like a stranger. We say we want the new thing, the next thing, the God thing, but when it shows up wrapped in the unknown, we hesitate. We overthink. We replay past disappointments like they're prophetic, and we end up shutting the door on the very answer we've been asking God to send. There's a moment that happens between the prayer and the promise, a moment where God asks you to open your heart, to trust him enough to say welcome to something you've never seen before. That moment can feel risky. It can feel like surrender, but that's exactly what faith is. It's not just believing God will do something. It's being willing to embrace it when it doesn't feel familiar. God doesn't just want to bless you, he wants to stretch you. And one of the ways he stretches us is by sending people, opportunities, and assignments that challenge our comfort zones. They won't always look safe, they won't always speak your language, but they're carrying something that belongs to you. And when you let fear make the decision, you miss the delivery. Fear says, what if it doesn't work? Faith says, what if it does? Fear says, what if they hurt me? Faith says, what if they help me heal? Fear says, this feels unfamiliar. Faith says, but it feels like God. You don't need to know everything to move forward. You just need to trust the one who sent it. And sometimes that means opening the door to something you don't fully understand. The elevation you're praying for might not come through someone you already know. It might come through a stranger, someone new to your life, someone who doesn't have your background, your story, your rhythm, but they've got your blessing, they've got your next step. We spend too much time rehearsing worst-case scenarios and not enough time preparing our hearts to receive. We protect ourselves out of purpose. We build walls where God asked us to build doors. And we call it discernment, but sometimes it's just fear dressed up as wisdom. Sometimes it's just unhealed wounds that keep us from recognizing God's provision. But there's a shift that happens when you stop living on defense and start living on assignment. When you stop saying, what if, and start saying, even if. Even if it's uncomfortable. Even if it stretches me. Even if I've been hurt before. I won't let fear rob me of this moment. I won't let the past shut the door on my future. If God sent it, I want it. There's a stranger coming. That might sound unsettling, but it's not. It's supernatural. Because when heaven wants to move, it often sends someone you weren't expecting. And the enemy will try to get you to close your heart before they arrive. He'll try to make you suspicious of what God is trying to supply. But here's your word. Don't let fear make you miss it. Don't let what you don't recognize cause you to reject what's been ordained. God doesn't waste motion. If he's sending someone new into your life, it's for a reason. It's for your growth. It's for your elevation. And you don't have to understand everything to say yes. You just have to be open. Open to seeing differently. Open to trusting deeper. Open to welcoming what feels unfamiliar because you trust the God who sent it. So open the door. Not just to people, but to possibility. Not just to opportunities, but to obedience. The moment is coming when what you prayed for will arrive in a form you weren't ready for. Will you slam the door, or will you say, welcome? Will you cling to fear, or will you make room for faith? You've been waiting for God to move. Maybe he already did. Maybe the shift is already standing at the threshold, and the only thing left is your response.
Hey, thanks for stopping by my YouTube channel. I hope you were blessed today. If you were, share this with somebody. Like and subscribe and leave me a comment. Let me know where you're watching from, what we can pray for you about. Hope to see you back here again really soon.